Thanks for visiting our channel again. Diane Lane graced the cover of Time magazine when she was 14 years old. As early as the age of 18, she had amassed a fortune $1 million. Hollywood was swooning over her as a teenage celebrity due to her beautiful face. The farther she traveled, though, the more subdued she grew. And Diane didn't come clean about her affairs with co-stars Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins until she was 59 years old, long after rumors had circulated but never been proven. Beginning as a young star in a light-hearted romance, and ending with the terrifying sequence in Unfaithful that viewers were led to believe involved actual sexual activity. Despite juggling a number of demanding roles, Diane Lane has weathered 2 failed marriages, an arrest that sparked controversy, and innumerable unanswered rumors. However, what kind of person is Diane Lane beneath those sad eyes? You should not miss this untold tale, which has never been presented in its entirety. New York City is the site of Diane Lane's birth on January 22, 1965. Her mom, the late nightclub singer and model Colleen Lee Farrington, sometimes called Colleen Price, was the cover girl for Playboy magazine in October 1957. Her dad, Burton Eugene Lane, was a Manhattan acting coach, cab driver, and City College of New York professor of humanities. He co-ran a drama workshop with John Cassavetes. Her parents divorced when Diane was just 13 days old. Subsequently, her mom got a divorce and relocated to Mexico. After staying Diane's guardian until she turned 6, she gave her up to her father when the family moved to Georgia. After that, Diane spent several years in New York City with her father, riding shotgun in his taxi from one residential hotel to another. Rides across Manhattan in an old cab, sporadic schooling, and an unconventional upbringing were the hallmarks of Diane's childhood. She had an unstable upbringing, but became engrossed in the bohemian lifestyle of artists and tiny stages. During that period, she was compelled to grow up fast and establish her independence. She made her declaration of independence from her father when she was 15 years old. Christopher Atkins, who she worked with and became friends with in Child Bride of Short Creek, joined her on a week-long flight to Los Angeles. Diane would characterize it as the careless behavior of a girl who was given excessive independence at a young age. She finished high school through correspondence while living with a friend's family in New York, where she was also responsible for paying her own rent. On the other hand, her mother took her and returned to Georgia in 1981 after an unexpected reappearance. After Diane and her father filed a lawsuit, she was finally granted permission to return to New York 6 weeks later. For 3 years following that incident, Diane and her mother had no communication until they made up. While visiting her Pentecostal grandmother in Georgia, Diane would sometimes stop by the town of Bardo, where she discovered the joys of a simpler life away from the mayhem. Salted pork, butter, mending lawn mowers, and living burden-free were some of the things she mentioned. In the fast-paced, high-stakes world of Hollywood, it helped her maintain her composure. Diane Lane is a fiercely independent woman who is wary of the media and who consistently differentiates between her personal life and the roles she plays. These traits are the result of her upbringing, which included her parents' divorce, unstable housing, separation from her mother, and the pressure to mature quickly. At the tender age of 13, Diane Lane made her cinematic debut in 1979's A Little Romance, co-starring the illustrious Laurence Olivier. The movie was a bombshell, not only a stepping stone, launching Diane Lane to sudden stardom on a national scale. She was a genuine actor with the body of a teenager, nuanced emotions, expressive eyes, and depth of feeling that belied her years when she appeared on screen. Time magazine's August 13, 1979 issue, with the headline, "Hollywood's Was Kids," put her in the spotlight less than a year later. In an age of movies devoid of authenticity and gut feelings, the magazine hailed her as a breath of fresh air. No one fell head over heels with this girl because she was flawless. Her unique honesty and innocence drew them to her on-screen persona. Not once did Diane Lane seem to be reciting lines. She embodied every emotion and made the audience, young and old alike, feel it for real. Diane had accomplished at the tender age of 14 what many actresses spend their careers striving for: the confidence of the audience. Despite the inevitable highs and lows, Hollywood's most precious commodities, patience and respect, would forever be bestowed upon her because of that magnificent start. After that, Diane kept popping up in a number of big films like Six Pack and Touched by Love, and then she hit her stride with critically acclaimed features like Rumble Fish, The Outsiders, Streets of Fire, and The Cotton Club. A remarkable show of faith for a teenage actor, Francis Ford Coppola cast her in 3 consecutive films, directing a number of them. Diane Lane's high pay, busy filming schedule, and ubiquitous presence on film made her a billionaire by the time she was 18 years old. Having said that, shadows followed the glare. Diane experienced the ups and downs of fame alongside her meteoric rise to stardom. She was still a teenager when rumors began circulating that she was romantically involved with her co-stars, including Michael Pare, Richard Gere, and Matt Dillon, mainly due to their on-screen chemistry. To keep these allegations out of her personal life, Diane frequently had to publicly refute them or stay silent. Many folks still don't get what she said when she did share. In addition, she was typecast and rarely had chances to demonstrate greater emotional range because most of the parts she had during that period were variants on the ideal girlfriend. As a result of audiences confusing Diane with her roles, she began to withdraw from the media and pick and choose which scripts to work on. After stepping foot in Hollywood, Diane Lane dove headfirst into celebrity, a daring but beautiful course of action. And she had to figure out early on that fame isn't the same as understanding. And just being an excellent actor isn't cutting it. Surviving in a universe that wants to write your story is another skill you'll need. Diane Lane broke out of her acting slump and began to assert herself as a fully realized artist after years of playing the stereotypical on-screen lover and navigating the murky line between character and truth. Connie Sumner, played by her in the 2002 Adrian Lyne film Unfaithful, is a lonely and disconnected wife who cheats not because she is lustful, but because she feels trapped in her seemingly ideal existence. Diane had never before been handed a character that multifaceted, complicated, and emotionally troubled. There was no talking or intercourse in the iconic shot of Connie sitting on a train after her first affair. Only her shaky hands, confused gaze, and weak breaths. Even after all these time has passed, people often cite it as a model of effective silent action. Unbeknownst to many, the sequence actually didn't exist in the original screenplay. According to Diane's interview with the Jess Cagle Show, Adrian Lyne told her to just shoot something. After they had finished filming and were returning the train to the station, nothing was inquired of me. I just began by closing my eyes. We only used one take and never res-hot it. She joked on Conan O'Brien's late-night show and stated, "There's no sex scene on the train, but everyone thinks there is." She went on to explain that this is all down to the influence of emotions in film. Not only did her portrayal of Connie reshape her public perception, but it also garnered her a Best Actress nomination at the Oscars and the Hollywood Film Awards. Long gone are the days of her being defined by her male co-stars. Now she is a genuine actress, able to captivate an audience with her gaze and quiet performance. Diane Lane didn't ease up after Unfaithful. She made her cinematic comeback with 2003's Under the Tuscan Sun, only a year after that. A radically different picture, but one that catapulted her to new heights in her career. She portrayed Frances, a middle-aged woman who has just gotten a divorce and decides to acquire a dilapidated property in Tuscany in order to start again. The protagonist wasn't born powerful. She was a downtrodden individual who had to rise again. Frances wasn't. Looking for a romantic partner, she wanted to find her own identity. Bringing her own life experiences to the part, Diane Lane made it her own. Filming in Tuscany sounded like a wonderful vacation at first, but after 5 weeks, it became too much, she said during an interview with Conan O'Brien on Late Night. "I no longer desired to be in paradise," she said frankly. Frances, the character she played, became a new Hollywood icon for middle-aged women. She was nominated for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy at the Golden Globes for her performance. But what really mattered was the impact the role had on her career. Diane Lane depicted rebirth in a manner that was profoundly human without exaggerating suffering or highlighting vulnerability. Clunky, slow, yet accurate. By the time she released Under the Tuscan Sun, Diane had matured beyond her youthful stardom and had become an inspiration to a whole new generation of women who were also trying to find themselves after experiencing loss. Diane Lane never did it again after Unfaithful and Under the Tuscan Sun. She stepped into the world of shy, flawed women, who history generally ignores, but whose minds were full of subdued defiance. She portrayed a wife who was slipping away from her marriage she had previously chosen in the 1999 film A Walk on the Moon. Diane subtly betrays her husband during their summer vacation, not because the lover is attractive, but because she feels unfulfilled in her role as a submissive wife. Viewed through the perspective of a woman who is self-aware enough to realize she is wrong, the film spares viewers any dramatic confrontations, but just can't seem to quit. More significantly, the role signaled a new era for Diane, acting with feeling rather than dialogue. It also earned her a nomination for the Independent Spirit Awards. Diane played the role of Penny Chinnery in Secretariat, 2010, a middle-aged housewife who accepts the horse farm her father bequeathed to her with mixed feelings. Even though women are expected to remain silent and males to make all the choices in the male-dominated world of professional horse racing, Penny manages to stay alive and even guides Secretariat to become one of the greatest racehorses in American history. Diane subtly declared, "I no longer play the lover, I play the leader," and the role broke age-based preconceptions. Next, in 2015's Trumbo, Diane took a back seat to play Cleo Fincher, the Hollywood blacklist-era wife of screenwriter Dalton Trumbo. Cleo was an unsung heroine who silently bore the consequences of her husband's decisions without grumbling or running away. She was the type of strong woman who rarely appeared on screen. With smothering determination, Diane delivered that. No oratory skills required. She communicated the gravity of her character's burden simply by standing there. Nights in Rodanthe, 2008, which reunited Diane with Richard Gere after more than 20 years, was Diane's return to romance, in addition to her portrayal of silent, strong women. On this occasion, it wasn't a couple of young, passionate lovers. Rather, it was two broken adults, Diane and Gere, who played the roles of lovers, and the audience bought into it. For the simple reason that proof is unnecessary for that type of chemistry. It says it all in the knowing looks and in the lengthy pauses that heal broken hearts. Diane Lane stayed out of the spotlight for a long time by projecting an image of quiet restraint. She was generally considered as an artist who dedicated her life to her work and avoided controversy, preferring to stay out of the spotlight. However, Diane shocked many in 2005 when she abruptly ended her long silence with a confession in an interview with Esquire magazine. "I was involved with Christopher Atkins as well as Timothy Hutton." Esquire, 2005, Diane Lane. Absent blame, no attempt at sidestepping responsibility. It was her direct words, like letting go of a heavy burden. Not only did her confession shock the media, but it also prompted the public to reevaluate the many dating stories that had circulated about her since the 1980s. The once disregarded rumors about Matt Dillon, Michael Pere, and Richard Gere suddenly took on more significance. Contradiction, rather than Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins' identities, was what made this confession ring true. An actress who frequently portrayed betrayed characters had really stepped over that line herself. For all her time, Diane Lane was a symbol of unfiltered, genuine feeling. However, that duality transformed her into a more nuanced character. Duality of role and reality, victim and offender, right and wrong. While some viewers were let down by her candor, others saw it as evidence that Diane wasn't playing the part, and she was alive. Even though the reality wasn't always positive, Diane Lane was used to the public eye following her private life from an early age. Christopher Lambert, though, was the one she remained with the longest and the one who made her smile whenever she spoke about him afterwards, out of all the relationships that were talked about. While Diane was in Paris in 1984 for a film promotion, they crossed paths. Their careers were soaring to new heights. His fame extends across Europe, but hers is quickly gaining renown in Hollywood. A love story across continents was born quickly. In 1988, for years after that, they tied the knot. Perhaps the lack of drama and media attention around their marriage is a contributing factor to its status as a tranquil period in Diane Lane's otherwise eventful life. Eleanor Jasmine Lambert was born to them in 1993. Diane would refer to her as the guiding light in all of her life's choices. But long distance, busy schedules, and cultural clashes were obstacles that Diane and Lambert, like many entertainment industry couples, had to overcome. After 6 years of marriage, they split in 1994 without any drama or animosity. Both moved on with their lives and formed new relationships after the divorce. Although Christopher Lambert's 1999 marriage to actress J. Haft only lasted a year, Diane Lane wed actor Josh Brolin in 2004. He was in a relationship with actress Sophie Marceau from 2007 till 2014. It's important to remember that Diane never criticized Lambert, even if they couldn't stay married. On the contrary, she frequently stressed that what's admirable is that they remained friends after the separation and co-parented their kid as if they were real colleagues. A breakup doesn't necessarily mean heartache for everyone involved. Diane and Lambert's marriage is an example of one that ends in mutual understanding and progress rather than bitterness. And that is the life that Diane Lane has chosen for herself. One that is low-key, responsible, and blame-free. Diane Lane needed almost 10 years after her divorce from Christopher Lambert before she could let her guard down again. She picked someone equally complicated the second time around. The actor Josh Brolin is well known for his rugged good looks and turbulent personal life. Their engagement took place in July 2003, and they tied the knot on August 15, 2004. They appeared to be the perfect pair from the outside. They had both experienced heartbreak. They were both adults. They both inhaled deeply, as if it were air. A little over 4 months following the nuptials, however, the couple entered their first difficult chapter. Diane Lane contacted the authorities following a heated altercation with Brolin at their residence on December 20, 2004. The arrest of Josh Brolin on a domestic assault misdemeanor charge caused a media frenzy. On the other hand, Diane chose not to file charges. The incident was later explained by their spokeswoman as a simple misunderstanding. Nothing further happened in court. There was no public accusation. However, the couple's appearance had changed. Lane remained silent during the press conference. She refrained from making accusations or used the media to defend herself. She said nothing. Since then, Diane Lane has spent more time at home with her children and less at public events, seemingly withdrawing into herself. And the steady rock of her home, Diane made the decision to end the marriage, which lasted nearly 10 years. It was formalized on November 27, 2013, after she and Brolin filed for divorce in February of that year. Neither of them publicly criticized the other. After the divorce, there were no public relations efforts or court battles. Nothing was shouted. Exactly how Diane had always confronted suffering, quietly but resolutely. Both Diane Lane and Josh Brolin persisted in their lives and professions following the divorce. Brolin continued to enjoy great acting success. Also, after several instances involving alcohol in 2013, he claimed to have been sober since then. There were subtle indications of stress and emotional boundaries in her second marriage, in contrast to the amicable end to her first. Though she never said she was a victim, Diane Lane made a powerful statement about quiet strength and self-respect by choosing to remain mute and walk away. From the betrayed Francis in Under the Tuscan Sun to the embodiment of silent sacrifice Martha Kent, Diane Lane frequently plays strong, complex women on television. These characters persevere, grapple with emotions, and convey deep meaning. She keeps her emotions in check when the cameras aren't rolling. Things change when you meet Diane Lane in person. She said, "I'm only good at playing someone who can cook in movies," before laughing when questioned about her culinary abilities on a chat program. "Buying takeout and acting like I made it myself is something I've done in real life." Just another one of those charming fibs. Diane is honest about her imperfections without striving for perfection. She is so relatable precisely because of that. Someone who has clumsily used a toaster and is unable to distinguish between duck and chicken eggs is desired by an Oscar-nominated actress who want to be featured on the cover of Time magazine. She also discussed an unusual and eccentric passion in an interview with Playboy from 1995. "A wide assortment of stilettos is in my possession. Feeling even slightly elevated is a sensation I thoroughly like. Attractive, humorous, and driven by instinct." When she's not acting, that's Diane Lane. In her spare time, she loves to spend with her daughter Eleanor, walk, do yoga, ride horses, and collect antique furniture. No gimmicks, no following fads. Uncommon yet uncomplicated, she lives life according to her own rules. Maybe that's why Diane Lane is able to convey such authenticity to her audiences. Her image is uncrafted in both her on-screen and off-screen personas. Without pretense, She just lives her life to the fullest, which can be a little strange and unusual at times. Diane Lane takes a different approach than other Hollywood actresses who reveal their innermost thoughts and feelings to the public, as if the events unfolding in her life necessitate just her understanding. She refrains from taking action when misunderstood or from publicly crying after experiencing heartbreak. Diane sees her silence as a sign of strength, even while others see it as a sign of weakness. Remaining silent is not due to a lack of words, but rather to the absence of necessity to utter them. Even after enduring 2 unhappy marriages, a contentious arrest, and a never-ending stream of romantic rumors, she continues to guard an untouchable private area, and at a place where her emotions are unaffected by celebrity. The world remembers certain stars because of the noise they make. Diane Lane opted to be silent as a means of leaving her mark. There have been no high-profile scandals, successful box office campaigns, or oversaturation of the media. Just a woman who, when she steps into the spotlight, talks through her eyes, and transforms suffering into art. VH1 acknowledged an indisputable truth in 2005 when they ranked her 79th on their list of the 100 greatest kid stars. Diane Lane achieved remarkable success right from the start. Not because she was trying to live up to beauty standards, but because Diane became an embodiment of strength, wisdom, and an unmistakable charm as she got older. She was also ranked 7th on the list of the most gorgeous celebrities over 40 that year. There is a reason why her audiences adore her. Diane Lane's acting career is defined by her versatility. Every woman, from Martha Kent in the DC Universe to Frances in Under the Tuscan Sun or Connie in Unfaithful, has her own unique story, rife with wounds, paradoxes, and hope. Diane doesn't use paint to depict her people. She exposes the audience to honest, relatable reflections of themselves as she peels back layers of dread. After the age of 40, success is rare for actresses. Diane Lane is uniquely titled. She has not only endured, but has also grown. There are no bold statements, no attempts to remake herself as a feminist icon, and no fights for attention from her. She is most strong when she is silent, since she is not fighting for anything or following a trend. Not many people are aware that Diane Lane is also involved in community service. Subtly, she lends her support to Haifa International's efforts to alleviate poverty across the world. Quiet, determined effort, no public donation drives, no blaring announcements. Apathetic yet unspoken, under the radar, but always busy. There will be no gilded statues to commemorate Diane Lane's career. What matters is the faith her fans have in her performances. We feel pain whenever she weeps. When she remains quiet, we comprehend. We will miss her when she departs. Not many people in the entertainment business are able to maintain that level of commitment for 40 years. Totally forthright in her work and personal life. Diane Lane, who has weathered every storm of the last 4 decades with grace and dignity, has decided to slow down, be more self-directed, and avoid the limelight now that she is no longer the center of tabloid romances or major film roles. Even now, she's not acting for the sake of stardom, elemental to her very being. Diane made quite an impression in her 2018 TV series House of Cards as a cunning politician, and she played the role of Slim Keith, a prominent figure in New York's elite society. In the 2024 series Feud, Capote versus the Swans. Diane Lane isn't merely surviving in Hollywood at nearly 60. She's redefining what it means to be a mature, layered, and brave actress. The role earned her an Emmy nomination, further confirming this. There won't be any wild social media, extravagant parties, or homes. Minimalism is Diane's way of life. She gets in her daily yoga practice, spends her weekends riding horses, and walks whenever she has the chance. Reading, gardening, flower arranging, and antique furniture are some of her hobbies. In an interview, Diane stated that nothing is more important to her than maintaining a healthy body and mind on a daily basis, regardless of how much attention she receives. Most importantly, she makes sure her daughter, Eleanor Jasmine Lambert, gets enough of attention. The daughter of Eleanor and Christopher Lambert, who had a child in 1993, is currently working as a freelance writer and model. She has been in Vanity Fair, Numero, and fronted multiple New York fashion ads, but she chose not to follow in her mother's acting footsteps. Despite this, she exudes the spirit of an independent artist. Diane said that Eleanor is her soulmate and the one who keeps me from drowning in the din of the world. Diane Lane is not interested in clinging to her youth at the age of 60. Living into old age is a blessing, she remarked. Age is just a series of wrinkles. This is a declaration of intent in a field that is so preoccupied with the idea of youth and perfection. Steer clear of ideals and cosmetic surgery. Beautiful, complex, and full of life experience, Diane Lane welcomes aging as an inevitable component of the journey. From the 13-year-old girl on the cover of Time magazine to the 60-year-old woman serenely seated on an Emmy-nominated set, Diane Lane has come a long way in 40 years, and she doesn't even need to proclaim herself a legend. Her beauty remains untarnished. She looks beautiful not because of plastic surgery or ideal lighting, but because she isn't afraid to flaunt her life's wrinkles and scars. Diane Lane is a shining example of how unfiltered grace and strength can triumph against the glitter and cruelty of Hollywood. So what's your take on it? Do you consider Diane Lane an underappreciated acting force or merely a teen idol whose career eventually faded? In your opinion, which of her performances resonated with you the most? And why does she have such an impact on you as a person? Could you muster the guts to age like she has? Tell us what's going through your head by posting a comment below. To make sure you don't miss our next motivational portrait, hit that like button and subscribe. More stories about stars who do more than shine. They guide others, are waiting for us. To continue experiencing these amazing experiences, tap the video that appears on screen.